So I want to welcome everyone. Thanks very much for joining us today. I'm quite excited about this session. Really important topic of why an MBA, why now, why this particular school, both in essays and in interviews. These are questions you are absolutely going to have to answer and really answer effectively. So just a little bit about myself first. So I've been doing this quite a long time now, more than 8 years, running my own MBA consultancy with my wife. And we have been hugely successful. Basically, all of our clients have gotten into at least one of their top choice programs, generally a top 20, most often a top 10. I work with all of the international schools. I'm quite accustomed to all the American schools, but I work with tons of international applicants, so I'm quite accustomed to all the European schools and Asian schools, et cetera. So whether you're applying to American, European, et cetera, I'm happy to help. If you are interested, feel free to send me a message through my profile, set up a free intro, and I'd love to see if there's any way we might be able to work together. I see a few more people starting to arrive. So let me just start with the basic agenda. We're going to go through first kind of why are these questions important? What are they asking you? Then get into some of the do's and don'ts. There are many of those. And after that, I've got 3 different essays that kind of double as, I'll explain how it's going to interact with kind of interview question answers, going through one by one each of those questions. And these are real examples from my clients who have been successful in getting into these schools that you're going to be seeing. And at the end, I hope we'll have enough time for some Q&A, followed by, if you may read the full description, I'm going to be giving away a 1-hour free interview prep session with me at the end. So I hope you stick around and find it really useful. Feel free to put questions into the chat. I will try and get to them towards the end, or if I see something, I'm kind of looking at 2 different computers here to try and present as well as follow you a little. So let's get into the first part of why these questions are so important. And basically, they are telling the school all of the key reasons that you want to do an MBA. What's the driving factor in that? MBAs are not necessary for everyone. If you only want to focus on really getting to be an incredible marketer, a more holistic MBA might not be as good as one focused entirely on marketing. They want to understand why is now the right time. Would it be better to wait a few years? Is it even necessary? That's can be an important question. Could you achieve your goals without an MBA? And if the answer is a simple yes to that, that's going to be a tough argument. And they're probably going to say, well, you don't really need to do an MBA. Why don't you just continue progressing in your career? And why this school? This is the most important of the 3 questions. Each school has its unique attributes and programs, and they want to know that you have done your homework. You have really come to understand their programs as deeply as possible. And they need to understand why they are the right program for you to help you achieve your goals, and why you are the right student, to come into their program and be a valuable contributor, right? They are working really hard to carefully handpick each of you to try and develop the best possible cohort that will make it easy for each of you to learn from one another, which any business school will tell you you're going to learn as much from your peers as you are, if not more sometimes, than the actual individual courses. So you're going to get into your kind of goals, and you want to be kind of showing that you have come through this process to really deeply understand yourself and have that kind of hopefully pretty clear purpose. It's not always, but that's kind of another issue. And that you can envision how this program is going to fit into achieving your short and your long-term goals. So some common problems, very often especially when I see the essays, they are quite vague. There's no really clear specific program elements that are even being mentioned. They're making statements that could be talking about literally any business school. There's no connection between what you're trying to achieve and kind of your overall career path. So I'm always talking about your past, present, and future, and how you are linking all of those things together. So think of the present really as this MBA program. So you want to come in with a very deep understanding of where you come from, your personal and professional background, and how that has brought you to this moment, and all of the skills that you are bringing with you, hard and soft, and the gaps that you've identified that you need to fill in order to achieve those future goals. So you're constantly trying to make these connections logical between where you're coming from and where you're trying to go, and how this MBA program, again, this specific one, your answers to why this school should be quite different for each school that you are applying to. So why can you gain what you need and give what they want to from you at this school that will immediately allow you to gain the short-term goal, so that immediate post-graduation job? They are concerned with employability. So they want to believe that when you say my goal is post-graduation to become a strategic consultant, whatever it might be, that it is realistic to them when you include the MBA. So maybe you have half of the things that would be ideal to land that job, and you're going to get the other half during the MBA. That's going to be how you're trying to convince them. Then how does your short-term goal connect to your long-term? So you're going to be talking about most your short-term, but always keeping in mind how it relates to that long-term dream, that long-term vision that you have. Absence of school research. I am a huge believer in spending tons and tons and tons of time digging deep, way beyond the website, into researching the school. I did an entire webinar not too long ago on Leland about this, and actually you can see it on Leland Plus if you are a subscriber there. If you're not, there's tons of amazing resources from me and from other terrific coaches. So if you're interested, you can message me and I'll send you the link for that webinar. But basically, you want to have such a clear understanding that you can get really specific to that program and set yourself apart from the majority, honestly, of applicants who really just scrape the surface. And you're going to get to know alumni and current students and admissions and potentially even professors, and you're going to be able to pepper all of that research into many places in your application in general, and in these answers specifically. These can be really powerful. Things you, oops, sorry, just jump. Things that you really must do during this. So we're talking today both about the interview and the essays, right? So in both cases, really, you need to engage the reader or engage the interviewer. You need to, grab their attention, make them interested in hearing more, and not just bore them to death, right? You want to really make, as I said, well put together answers to these questions that are kind of linking everything together. I mentioned a lot of this already, being authentic, this is a really important thing that I and I think most coaches are talking about, which is don't try and be what the school is saying they're looking for. If you listen to any info session of any school, they will always say, forget that for the most part. Show us your true self. Show us your authentic self. Now, within that, you should then consider what is the school looking for, and don't force yourself into that mold, but do think within my authentic self, what are the things I might highlight the most that already connect to that. You can't create things from scratch that didn't already exist, but you can choose to highlight different parts of your story for different schools. Being concise, you're forced to in the essays, depending on the school. Some schools even down to 200 words, 250 words. Stay on point. If you hear yourself starting to go off on a tangent, try and stop yourself and come back to the main point. Be very, very positive. Don't come in, really putting down your previous employer or whatever these kind of issues might be. And obviously do tons of practice. Things to avoid, rambling on and on and on and on. This is really easy to do. As you might see, I am a talker, so this is something that I would struggle with in these situations. Using jargon, you're in your industry, and when you're talking to your colleagues, everyone understands when you throw out all of these acronyms and other various forms of jargon. So assume they don't understand your industry, and keep the language simple. And if you need to use certain jargon, then explain it to them in easy to understand terms. Sometimes people try and be overly humble. You don't want to be arrogant, but you should show self-confidence. You want to be proud of all of your achievements. And as I said, just again, don't be negative going into this. Don't. They ask you to, why did you apply to us, and what other schools did you apply to? Don't be negative about the other schools, right? Don't say, you definitely want to say, okay, I want to come to your school and you're my number one pick. But then don't say, oh, because this other school has this or that problem, and start like putting them down. That will leave a bad taste in their mouth. In the interviews, you're going to face, in the majority, they're generally blind. That's the most common with most schools, meaning the interviewer has only seen very often your resume. They haven't read your essays or any other part of your application. When it's blind, it's really wonderful for you, because you can go back to your application and you can review that. And much of the time, the core of your spoken answers is in your essays, and they won't know what you said. So you can literally be repeating those stories without worrying that you are just rehashing things they already understand. On the other hand, with schools where they have read your entire application, with MIT, for example, in this case, think about trying to keep adding as much as you can. It's impossible not to repeat some things. You're talking about your goals. You need to some level restate them in the interview itself. But when they ask these questions, you don't want to just repeat everything that you've already mentioned in your essays. My favorite way to try and do this is to reference what you have said in your essays with something like, in addition to the reasons I already shared in my application, blah, blah, blah. So with these questions, with why this school especially, you want to just keep doing your research even after you submit that application. So especially if you're applying to these schools, so when you get to the interview, you have additional information that you can share with them. This will allow you to keep improving your case with the schools. More general information on what we're about to get into. All of the essays that we're going to look at like I said, we're kind of merging the essays and interviews. So the way I've done this is I've taken real client essays, and then they're somewhat broken apart. So some is from an essay that kind of incorporates these questions, and then there might be some short answers. So I'm pulling some of this together to make it easiest to give you kind of examples and show this. And in this case, I've gone with all schools based in London. We're going to be talking about LBS, Oxford, and Cambridge. I just thought it would be fun to focus on one area. And as I said, I work with a lot of the international schools too, so I thought that would be fun. And you also want to remember, we're kind of talking about them individually, but these questions really naturally overlap. It's hard to give an answer to one of these without somewhat getting into at least one, sometimes both of the others. So thinking about these in how you're going to deliver answers in your interview versus your essays. So here again, think of it with the essays. So don't imagine that what we're reading here, you would be saying all of this in one continuous, statement. You're going to boil this down to more concise initial answers, and you will most often get follow-up questions. And it's in the follow-up questions that you can imagine looking at these longer, answers, kind of essay answers, that you would be able to start adding some of the other details that we're going to look at in these essay examples. Ways that you can kind of switch this into delivering it as an interview answer really is going to depend on you and what your kind of personality is. So just a few examples. Answering why an MBA, you might begin with your kind of core passion. I'm passionate about changing the world through creating circular economies, and this has come from blah blah blah. And then you're going to start getting into how that links to everything. Why this school? Probably one of the most common, and it's kind of expected. So on the one hand, it's a little bit boring, but on the other hand, it's easy to understand. Is just give kind of your 2, 3, 4 top reasons for this school, and then give at least 1 or 2 examples of parts of the program that are connected to that. Why now? This might be when you just had that realization, right? You were, just last year you had a particular project and you had a failure, and looking back, had you had some of the skills that you can gain doing your MBA, you would have been able to overcome it and turn it into a real success. So now, without further ado, let's jump into essays. Some of this text is going to be small, so as it is now, are you able to read that? We're not gonna read the whole thing. I'm just going to be highlighting some points. So can anyone let me know if you are able to read that text even at that size? No? Okay. All right. So what I'm going to highlight first, and I will zoom in on some of this, is a kind of generic answer, which this is kind of what you're trying to avoid. Can you read those highlighted portions? Okay. Okay, great. Just let me know as it go if I'll try and keep zooming in and zooming out. So in this case, you're trying to be throughout as specific as possible. And your kind of litmus test for kind of gauging, is it specific enough, is when you read it, if you could be talking about any school, or if it's completely general, then you haven't succeeded. You're in the really generic category, and you need to keep editing. So just a couple examples. An MBA will be transformative. In economy classes, I can learn the practical aspects of building a sustainable circular society. Okay, great. Is there any more? Is there a particular way or element to this program that's going to help you do that? Most importantly, the MBA community will help me gain global connections. Is there any top MBA program that doesn't have an amazing alumni network? You haven't really said anything at this point, right? So in this case, you haven't given any specific career path information. No classes, no clubs, no labs, no professors, alumni. It's clear you haven't done any research on that school. You're not linking anything together. I don't understand maybe how this relates to your goals. And you're going to see school name listed on the specifics on kind of all of these slides. And this may sound ridiculous, but I've had so many conversations with directors of admissions of these schools where every one of them can count many times when they receive applications where either they never have their school mentioned anywhere in the essays, and it's generic, so they kind of feel, did they literally just send this to all of their schools? Or occasionally people are so kind of hurried or whatever it might be that they actually are copying and pasting part of one essay to another school, and they neglect to remove the other school's name. So you're applying to MIT and it says Harvard somewhere in your essays. So you can imagine how that makes them feel. Going on here in this, we're starting to get more, sorry, sorry, I just hit the wrong, jumping ahead. Okay, so here we're going to see just a couple examples of beginning to get a little better. In this example, and by the way, I'm going to make a PDF available of all of this after the event. So if you email me, I will send you everything, and then you can read through all of these, the kind of generic, moderate, and then the successful examples if you want to be able to really kind of take it all in complete context. But obviously with an hour, we can't go that far. So here, in addition, a 7-week strategic consulting project, that's the specific name to this. I know it sounds generic, but it's what they call it there, will be an ideal accelerator for my post-MBA career. Okay, at least we're mentioning something that is unique to that particular school, and we are then linking it at least generically to your goals, and maybe you've already talked in the earlier question about what your goals are, so maybe here it's already enough. They already understand what those goals are, so that's fine. Looking down here, Miss So-and-so shared that gaining global connections in topics that are still not sufficiently addressed worldwide can lead to future cross-national collaborations. Okay, now we are bringing in one alum, so that's great, and I'm going to talk a lot about how powerful I do feel it can be to use alumni and students' voices in interviews and in the essays to kind of add power. And here you've kind of given a little bit of a specific issue. So small improvements in this version. All right, now going on, I'm going to kind of go bit by bit through the 3 different questions and highlight. We're not going to read through, like I said, all the way through each piece, but I'm going to go through and kind of give you some examples where in these essays they are highlighting these specifics, the career path, exact classes, clubs, labs that are unique to these schools, professors demonstrating that deep school research, linking everything together, and making it into a really compelling package. So this is just one example that I want to pull, which this is the idea of everything that we're looking at. It's not always going to be this kind of neat and tidy, but often it's going to be, all right, with why an MBA in this example, what is something you need? What is something you need to gain from an MBA that you would not be able to gain from just continuing in your current position? And taking that need and then linking it to the school and something very specific at that school, unique to that school, that is going to help fill in that gap. And then supporting it again with as much detail as you can. So in this case, the course that we're talking about is global sustainable business, as you can see. Can you read that there? Let me zoom in a little more. Can everyone read that now? Okay, good. So you've got the challenge. A key challenge I've encountered is gaining departmental buy-in for sustainability programs. This course offers insights into linking sustainability to business benefits and creating impactful customer relations. That's kind of the specific idea of what they're going to gain. And these are more details where they've actually spoken to the professor. So Professor so-and-so assured me that their class, Global Sustainable Business, will be instrumental in understanding the comprehensive techniques, for example, communication with various stakeholders, such as internal teams, clients, consumers, and investors, for generating business profits and for responding to legal regulations is not only, I'm redacting everything, this Asian country, but also other countries required for effective sustainability execution. So you have a need and you have a very specific element of that program and kind of what how that element is going to give that to you, how it's going to help fill that gap. Oops, sorry. Excuse me. Sorry. Mouse problems. Okay, so now diving in a little more deeply, you're going to see kind of pieces of the whole answer in order, and I'm just going to highlight and talk about various lines or paragraphs. So in this case, with this applicant, they were a consultant already, but they really wanted to gain a true specialization in sustainability execution. And they wanted to learn a lot about anything related to that, as well as improve their understanding of business management in general, so that they would be able to understand eventually how to drive these SX initiatives throughout a company, right? So understand all of the working parts so that when they were designing these initiatives and then trying to actually execute on them, they would be able to relate to all of the kind of moving parts. And so here they are giving, in this case, a kind of industry overview and connecting it to the goals and a bit about the current job market, which they also sometimes are appreciative of, that you understand what the current situation is. Can't get quite there. All right, so hopefully you can read that, but I'll go through. In this Asian country, all top consulting firms are engaged in MBA recruitment. For sustainability consulting roles, an MBA is not considered a mandatory qualification. Instead, practical experience in addressing sustainability issues is given more importance. However, since many large corporations have built supply chains across various nations, I believe that without an international perspective or knowledge of global business, one can only offer narrow insights, and it becomes difficult to truly deliver value to clients. Through an Oxford MBA, I want to learn about the national characteristics of different countries and how to conduct global business by leading projects with diverse people. From job descriptions on the recruitment pages of consulting firms, it's evident that sustainable management integrated into business strategy is gaining momentum and is expected to see a large rise in demand in the future. So this is, again, kind of what's the backdrop to why they feel it's needed, it's necessary for them to do an MBA. And they're also just kind of referencing a little bit that they've been starting to do their research on the other side, right? They've been starting to see how many jobs that they are targeting are actually currently available, and what do they seem to actually be looking for, and of course looking at the schools recruiting and seeing do those companies, those very specific companies, recruit from that individual school. Going on here, let me zoom in too. Here now they're citing a specific experiential program and linking it to their short-term goal. In addition, a 7-week strategic consulting project, again, that's the name of the school, will enable me to bridge the gap between theory and practice by applying the knowledge and skills acquired at Oxford to a real-world consulting project. I view this summer project as an ideal accelerator for my post-MBA career. So here again, they've already said what that goal is, so it's generic on what the post-MBA career is, but the reader or listener already understands that. Keep doing that. Okay. Here's an example of a specific lab and why this lab matters to them. Oops. Sorry. Zooming in and zooming out is proving difficult on this. Okay. Additionally, the Impact Lab is an integral part of my MBA journey. As highlighted by many students and alumni, its greatest value lies in building a lasting network of peers dedicated to social impact. This network will be a vital resource for sharing insights and advice as I navigate my career in sustainability. So very specific, school-specific lab, and why it's important in their particular story. Okay. Going on to why now. Again, you'll have the same answer, full answer, if you send me for a PDF. Here, now into the why now, focusing on, they're introducing here their goals and some of their needs, right? I will return to the XX agency as deputy director in the long term, aim to assume the top role of commissioner. Having reached a mid-level managerial position, I've identified gaps in my strategic leadership skills. With the market shifting toward AI-driven solutions, this is the ideal time to pursue an MBA to stay ahead. Cambridge's focus on technology integration in business, especially through its AI lab, is unparalleled. So in this case, you're going to see that this applicant is coming from the public sector, and you're going to see focusing on fintech and having to oversee them. And really the core of their goal is they have been on the public side, they've been on the government side. They want to better understand the business side of being a fintech company so that they can relate much more effectively, and that the companies that they're overseeing can see that they truly understand the business, that the regulations that they're coming up with are logical, and that they can have deep conversations with the individual fintech firms to make sure that everything is operating effectively and adjust as needed. So here we have, let me just read this part. Looking at, as I said, they're trying to gain entrepreneurship understanding and a deeper knowledge of fintech in general. And as I said, how to then be able to regulate them. And so here they're getting into that a little bit, and then they're also connecting it to those goals. At CGBS and Silicon Fen, I can understand how successful entrepreneurial environments work. I am especially interested in fintech strategy. Professor so-and-so shared that I will learn how innovation disrupts the conventional market, and it will be able to collaborate with company hitting regulatory roadblocks and approach the government business relationship from the business side. So again, this is directly relating to their goals and giving a very specific example of, at this program, how they're going to do that. Here, they're getting into a bit related to their long-term goals, and at the same time, it's beginning to integrate something related to how they will contribute to the program. I will need to communicate with CEOs of fintech startups and engage in discussions with private sector individuals from unfamiliar countries when regulating international companies. Moreover, when I become commissioner, I will lead thousands of employees nationwide. Studying at CGBS, where only 8% of students are from the public sector, will provide me with a unique opportunity to learn from and build a relationship with students with backgrounds I've never encountered before. Conversely, I contribute by sharing my knowledge as a financial regulator and MPP holder, such as how regulations are created and how a government views businesses. Very, very specific again. All right, now on to, I think, the most important of these questions, which is the why this is school. They care about why MBA, they care about why now, they care like tenfold why their school. So this is absolutely the most important of these three questions. This applicant was a lawyer, and they wanted to specialize in working with startups. And at their firm, and I think this is true of many law firms, it's hardest, especially as you're rising as an up-and-coming lawyer, to gain new clients, right? You're constantly supporting partners. And so this lawyer had identified there was an increasing number of startups in their area. And obviously with startups, they are starting from scratch, so they don't immediately have law firms already in place. So they could be a really good target for them. So they wanted that to be their specialty. And they were really sick of the typical law firm work style of just working night and day and really having no life except your work. So they wanted to learn how to be able to better manage the law firm so that lawyers could actually have somewhat of a work-life balance. So here they're talking about a need, and then they're going to use an alum's voice to explain how various specific program components will benefit them in this way. I often modify such type of agreements, but sometimes they do not meet the startup's needs due to a lack of business experience. Mr. So-and-so, MBA, whichever year, informed me that London Business School's MBA program provides classes such as Pathways to Startup Success, focusing on key entrepreneurial challenges, including business and legal aspects. Also, he suggested From Innovation to Market to experience a startup project with UCL research scientists and investors firsthand. Furthermore, I can expand my network in the startup community by taking Entrepreneurship Summer School. Certainly, these courses will enable me to provide legal advice in line with clients' business needs and will help me to market myself to startup communities. Additionally, LBS's impressive alumni network will give me the opportunity to help international clients expand their businesses and to be a resource to my peers wishing to enter the South American community that they're working in. Okay, going on. Here they're getting into a specific club they're referencing, and this is then going to also be an example of how they are, one of the ways they're intending to get involved, and a little bit of something of how they're going to gain something and also give something back. So Mr. So-and-so, and they were the leader of the real estate club, also informed me that LBS club activities are helpful for deepening friendships with people sharing the same interests and gaining related knowledge. I aim to participate in the entrepreneurship and real estate clubs where I can share my experiences of their country, practice, and learn from other countries' policies. Looking at where we're in time. Okay, I want to make sure we have enough time. Okay. Here, they're going to highlight some more of their past experiences, and these are ways of demonstrating that these experiences will also translate into contributions at school. I would like to add a few examples of how I can contribute to the program. My comprehensive legal expertise, acquired as a South American country corporate lawyer working across borders, gives me a valuable and unique perspective that can be applied to many subjects. While assisting a South American bank for this customer, we retained local law firms in more than 15 countries and asked their advice from so-and-so, which familiarized me with related legal systems worldwide. Also, I belong to the so-and-so study group at my firm, which is writing the book to be published, and the legal analysis section is my responsibility. Sorry that so much has to be redacted, but that gives you the idea of how he's talking about some of that, and even at points where they're not directly saying, this will allow me to contribute in this exact way. They're saying some of that, but also they're demonstrating these are areas of expertise that I'll be bringing with me that in any context, whether it's a study group, in a class, in a club, on a consulting project, are going to benefit my classmates. Last one here, I will read this one all the way through, and this, I often get asked, is it acceptable to include personal aspects of your story? This is in all types of essays, all types of applications, is kind of constantly a question. And of course, you don't want the application, the essays, to be primarily on the personal side, but weaving in some personal aspects makes sense, right? You are human and they want you to be a whole person. They're not admitting a machine. So in this case, one of the reasons that this applicant was giving is their family. So finally, and maybe most importantly, my wife will have to quit her job and leave her family and friends behind to accompany me to London. Although she is thrilled for our new adventure, she is concerned about building a new community. All LBS students and alumni said that LBS is inclusive and welcomes students' family members. For example, I heard that students' partners as well as students can participate in various activities organized by clubs. I'm happy to hear that I can share these enjoyable moments with my wife, who has been my best partner in my challenges and successes. All right, so why don't we, okay, good. We've got decent amount of time for questions. So why don't we jump in there, and let me have a sip of water while if anyone wants to jump off of mute or type a question in, whatever is best for you.
Hello, Jess.
Hi.
Hi, yeah. So I have a question. So he just showed us an essay wherein that person had written that I talked to Mr. So and so from the class of so and so. My first question is that can we write the name of the alum? And secondly, so as to include the personal anecdotes wherein we had a coffee chat with the alum. Would you suggest to at least talk to one alum per school so as to include their narratives in our essays?
Good question. And so, yes, you can say you can say the full name, and you should. In some schools' applications, they'll even give you special areas where you can provide a complete list of exactly who you spoke to, both current students, alumni, professors, etc., admissions staff, and maybe what you even talked about. So as I mentioned, I'm a huge believer in doing just intense school research because most of your competitors aren't doing enough. So if you do it, it will set you apart. So as far as should you talk to at least one alum from every school, you should talk to at least, let's say, current students and alum, minimum 5. And that to me is like dead minimum. I like to see 7, 8, even 10 plus. And let me give it a kind of example of, you shouldn't just be talking to anyone. You're trying to be very strategic and logical so that everything you're doing is further strengthening your arguments. So in researching your target alumni, for example, my advice is to think about your situation. So you're coming from consulting and you're trying to pivot into investment banking. Okay. So using LinkedIn, and I get into this, and I'm going to be doing a whole nother seminar on this. You will search for people who are coming from a consulting background, who are alumni from that school. And if we're talking about your short-term goal, your immediate job post-graduation, who are in those positions, even targeting the companies that, in the companies that you are targeting. That's going to give you a much narrower list. And then you reach out to those people. and then think about, okay, where do I see myself mid-career, and try and get in touch with some of those people. What's my dream? Now, this is going to seem like, can I reach out to the CEO of this, huge company? And under normal circumstances, it might be unlikely they would respond. But this is a very unique situation where when you are reaching out to that alumni, there is a reasonable chance, and I've seen some well-known CEOs respond to these inquiries. Don't be shocked if you don't get any response, but you will often get them to come back to you, and even end up having, often pretty short chat with them. But you get the idea. So now in your essays and in your interviews, when you are mentioning those very specific alumni you spoke to, you're going to be able to connect it in those ways, right? So I hope to be with this company post-graduation, and I spoke to so-and-so who graduated 2 years ago and successfully did exactly my pivot from consulting into investment banking. And they shared with me how, their path, right? So then taking something very specific that they shared with you, but making it yours, right? You're not just repeating their example of how it benefited them. You're translating it to how their experience is going to, how you're personalizing that, right? So how is going through that similar course or club going to propel you to achieve that goal? Does that answer the question? I know I kind of, speaking of rambling, I hope that was still staying on target for you, but does that answer the question, or any follow-up, or anyone else want to pick up on that?
Yes, it's clear to me.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, you can go ahead. Thank you.
Okay. Hey, Jess. I put a couple of questions in the chat, but I also had another one that comes to mind that I didn't get a chance to type. I would love to sort of understand how much of your essay should be about the short term and how much about the long term. Because sometimes you get these essays that are explicit about the fact that they want you to talk about both the short term and the long term. But my question is more around, when I highlight the activities, the clubs, the classes, how much of that should be focused on the short term, and how much of it should be sort of also forward looking into these activities that I'm doing today will of course help me 10 years down the line get to my dream job.
Excellent question. So I think it's always short answer, much more attention on the short term. And part of the way you're going to explain getting to the long term is, I need everything from the school to get to the short term goal. That's the immediate post graduation. But after that, I need all of the things that I gained during the MBA. But now to get to that dream job, 20 years down the road, whatever it might be, I need to gain these things during my, the first 5 years of my career post graduation. And I hope to then move to, be promoted to this position or move to this type of company midterm. And from that experience, I will gain XYZ, which will be the remaining missing pieces that will allow me to succeed in getting to the dream, right? So they completely understand you can't go from 0 to 100. So you should, I always like the presentation of, give them the long term, give them the passion, right? What are you passionate about? What's the dream? What's the impact you eventually hope to have on the world? So they can always have in their mind, this is the place you're trying to get to. And now you're stepping all the way back to now and talking about, how are you going to do that? So yes, talking about that short-term connection, much more, but it should be logical then of getting to that short term. Obviously is it's like 50% or better of what you're going to need to be able to get to the long term. Does that answer that? And any follow-up there? I'm looking at chat too while we're talking about.
I guess one quick follow-up is, then does it make sense, for instance, to talk about
Sorry, maybe you got cut off. All right, I'll see.
Oh my God. Yeah, sorry,
Yeah,
put me on mute.
no, it's okay. Go back.
Yeah, I was just like wondering, like, if more specifically, I should also mention, of course, like in the short term, this is like whatever, and activities X, Y, Z, of course, will help me. But then, I also hope to, through activity Y, to learn some of the things that will then enable me to come back to in the future as a point of reference for achieving my long-term goal.
Give me that again. Can you give me an example of I got lost in it.
Yeah. So for instance, my long-term goal is I want to start a fund focused on investing in health companies and health fund managers.
Okay.
And basically, like, my short-term goal is most likely going to be working at a VC firm where I can learn all the ropes.
Okay.
And basically, my emphasis on the essay so far has been, I want to be an investor. I've been an investor before, but like not focused on health and etc. And basically, I want the MBA to allow me to sort of like learn the ropes, to help me sort of like solidify some of the skills that I know that I'm lacking, and also like replenish my healthcare management knowledge and stuff like that. But I also know that, like, for instance, given the fact that I want to be a fund manager in the future, there's going to be courses and activities that I could be taking on during my MBA, whether that's, for instance, like HAS impact lab focused on, helping fund managers, or, another school courses focused on like the venture, the economics of the PE industry, so you can understand how actually like setting up a fund works. So like how much of that should be just short term.
Now I got it. Okay. So no, you should absolutely be doing all of those fund, and investment related courses that relate more to the long-term goal. But it's you want to gain, like, in the short-term job, in the VC firm, it might be hard to gain real world experience in all of those areas, right? So yes, you want to think about both short and long term. What are the things that you are not going to easily be able to get, right? Short term, you're explaining how is this going to help you get to that short term job, right? But long term, yes, absolutely, you should think about, in your case, these kind of investing and fund related, fund management, whatever, very specific courses in labs that maybe won't be that important in the short term, but when you are necessary for you to achieve the dream. So absolutely, it's logical and critical to incorporate that. Is that clear?
Yeah, thank you so much.
Absolutely. I see a question in chat. Given we're only a few weeks out from some of the MBA application deadlines, yes, coming soon, is it too late to reach out to people? Any tips on how to approach them with short timeline? Okay, it's never too late, although I hope you already have spoken to some, but if you haven't spoken to any, get on it as soon as we finish the event. So you should start now, and you should even continue after you submit your application, especially if you haven't done enough of this already, because you'll submit the application, you'll have a long period between submitting and the interview. So you can do a lot of engagement between submitting and the interview. And if you're a little bit weak now, you can really strengthen that knowledge between now and then. As far as how to approach them, with the short timeline, I would only say you are applying in this round, and you could reference you've talked to other people. So I wouldn't say, hey, I haven't talked to anyone at the last minute, I'm now reaching out to you. You are reaching out to them, you've spoken to other people, and this is kind of the way the order of your time and people you're reaching out to has kind of fallen. But with limited time, be super strategic. So here again, you're thinking, what are the things that are most important to me at this school? So I want to join this club, and I really need to learn, improve my leadership skills and knowledge of healthcare. Like she was talking about. Sorry, I couldn't catch the name as we're going. But so in this case, I want to join that club, the healthcare whatever club, and become the president. So reach out to the current president, and which in the 2-year programs will usually be a second-year student, and talk to them about their journey to from the first year to getting that position, and talk to them about where you're coming from, why you're interested in that, what you look for things in you have in common. And when you are very targeted like that, you will have a much better kind of response rate. Also, for short term like this, most schools these days have on their websites a resource for connecting at least with current students. They often have, like most schools have current student ambassadors who are actively, ready to speak with you, and you can usually kind of screen them. So I would go immediately there and try and identify some students who would be appropriate, and start reaching out to them. One other note on that is, don't stay with your nationality. You can start, it's easy to get people immediately to talk to you from your home country, but especially many international applicants might be a little bit shy, and they stick to only contacting people from their country. And you really show the school a lot when you reach out to all different nationalities, and they see these names from different countries. All schools at this point are focusing on diversity, and that you're really showing them from the get-go you're going to engage in that. We've just got about 4 more minutes. Maybe I can take one or 2 more questions before we wrap up. Anyone else got any? I'm looking back. I am going to send this. Well, for the slide deck, if you can message me after, I just put in there my profile. So just go there and message me, and I will be happy to send you. I've got a PDF version that's easier that I'll send you later. Any other questions?
Jess, I have a question again.
Sure, go ahead.
Yes. So as you said that when we network, we also define our own personal post MBA goals, right? And it's a very back and forth sort of conversation that we can have with different people, so as to gain specificity around our MBA goals. I want to know that till what point should one be very specific? For example, if one wants to pivot into consulting, so how specific can one be in defining everything around consulting as a post MBA goal?
You mean, yeah, I'm slightly unclear on you're just.
For example, if someone wants to pivot into consulting, right? So when that person talks to alum and the current student, what all questions they should touch upon so as to help them pivot? How specific?
Okay. So as specific as you are able to be, right? So your short-term goal should not necessarily be just, I want to go into consulting. If you can, it's okay. Is there a niche within consulting that you are most interested in? What are the specific companies? Is it all the big names, or are there some other smaller firms that for whatever reason that specialize in something? So you should narrow your goals as much as you can, so that when you are talking to them, you can ask those kind of questions. But people like to talk about themselves. So if they're not kind of perfectly aligned, then you can ask a little more general, and let them tell you about what their experience has been in using the program to make that pivot, and if they're current student, what they're doing to kind of maximize that, and if they're an alum, how were they, what was most beneficial to them, and what tips do they have for you on internships or whatever.
Got it.
Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
All right, great. Well, I know it just goes so fast. So I know we're running out of time, so let me just jump back. All right, so when we finish here, Leland is a little bit strange, and they only will let you. I hope you found this really useful. If everyone can tell me in the chat, even if this has been helpful to you, that would be great. And if it has been, then when you leave the event, it will ask you like thumbs up or thumbs down. It would be great if you thumbs up, and then it will ask you to give a 5-star rating. And if you have some comment about what you found valuable, that would be really, really helpful. End of shameless plug. Thank you. And lastly, I need to pick the winner today of the free session with me for interview prep. Just a second. And okay. All right. NL Nicholas L. Are you here? I'm just going to put Nicholas, if you can reach out to me after the session, then you may not be at interviews now, I understand that, but go ahead and reach out to me and we'll figure out when we'll be able to schedule that free interview prep session. And for everyone, I hope you are successful in your journey. And if I can be helpful to you, please message me and set up a free intro call. I would love to help you in any way that I can. So thanks again, everyone. And I look forward to seeing you in my next event and talking to you directly offline. Thanks, everyone. Bye.